Welcome back. Well, young offenders will be forced to do farm work under a proposal to tackle increasing rates of Queensland juvenile crime. Opposition leader Peta Credlin today outlined a crackdown on youth crime to combat increasing rates of offending.
When you are convicted, or when a youth is convicted of their third conviction of an offence on their third time, there will be mandatory detention. It is important that there is no more slaps on the wrist. There will be real consequences. If you do the crime, you will do the time.
The Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk has condemned the proposal, saying it's destined to fail.
It seems to be straight out of Campbell Newman's playbook, and in relation to these farms they want to send the young people to, the LNP had a previous policy called boot camps. The Auditor-General gave a scathing report of how ineffective those boot camps were.
Well, to discuss this and more, I'm joined by my panel, social commentator Prue McSweet in Sydney and former Queensland Premier Campbell Newman, who was name-checked there by the Premier. He's coming to us from Brisbane. I'll start with you. She thinks you're still in the campaign contest there, I think. What do you think of the policy announced today in relation particularly mandatory detention for juvenile repeat offenders, Campbell?
Well, look, for the interstate viewers outside of Queensland, there is a huge problem with youth crime in regional cities and indeed southeast Queensland. And 5 years of Labor hand-wringing hasn't done anything other than seeing the situation deteriorate. We saw a tragedy in Townsville only a few weeks ago when young offenders had stolen a car, gone for a joyride, and I think it was 3 young people lost their lives in that terrible incident. This is what Labor have failed to achieve. It's the situation they've created. Good on Peta Credlin for actually proposing new initiatives. You know, the thing is, we've had the insiders, the lobby groups, the individuals who know about the system, all a bunch of left-wingers. Their prescriptions don't work. They'll be criticising this, but you know what? The politics of it and the outcomes will be good for the LNP and for Queenslanders.
Prue, this is where I think, you know, the Premier's not that smart. I would, if I was her, immediately go out and say, great idea, we'll adopt it, and neutralise the issue immediately, because she can't say what she is doing is working, because it's not, and she hasn't got many other areas to go if this initiative's taken up by the opposition. So she's sort of wedged in the pincer movement. Why would she fight it? Because I think it'd have a lot of support across Queensland, wouldn't it?
I'm sure it would. You know, when we're talking about young people's lives here, you can't deny there is a huge problem right from Cairns to Gold Coast. Youth are running rampant, and part of the problem is that they're just not getting the life skills, they're not getting the education, the love and the care from their families, and they're just running wild. And I think her idea of having these, you know, give back, I think they're called camps or something like that, where they actually are being taught skills, vocation. I mean, who could argue with any of that? There's whatever is happening in their lives now is not working, and they need some sort of a fix. And this is a great idea, and it will be, I think, a big vote winner for the LNP.
Yeah, I think it'll be very popular. Before I move on, Campbell, I've got to ask you, Cameron Dick, for those who don't know, he's the Treasurer now, replaced Jackie Trad. He's bounced her idea to shake up Treasury. He's also bounced her idea to hire a chief economist to basically get out there and sell the government's economic message. I suspect he's trying to save the money because there's not much of an economic message to sell if you look at the debt levels in Queensland. But what do you think about this? Look,
Queensland is heading for at least $100 billion worth of debt. There is no money, and they have been delaying, you know, a state budget this year because I think they don't want to be subjected to the scrutiny and have to fess up that the coffers are bare. I would be pretty confident that inside Treasury and indeed inside the political side of the operation, they are investigating desperately all sorts of ways that they could raise money. Whether they'll be upfront with Queenslanders, I don't know. But I would predict that it is such a diabolical and desperate situation that they would actually have to contemplate some sort of asset sale. You know, so that's my prediction. If they're re-elected, I reckon the Labor Party will sell assets because there will be absolutely no choice. But they won't be upfront and tell Queenslanders that.
Yeah, well, I would be asking pointed questions about asset sales to China or debt deals like Dan Andrews down here in Victoria, because it's very much the same thing. Their backs against the wall in a fiscal sense. Prue, I want to ask you about this story out of New South Wales. We know that a lot of the emergency services workers and others, the pay wasn't cut, but it wasn't increased as had been proposed. It was put into, the pay increase was frozen. But we find out that ministers, some ministers, Damien Tudorhope's one day, he's a good bloke. I know Damien Tudorhope is the finance minister. Nonetheless, at a time when everyone's belt tightening, he's just had a $17,000 pay increase. Now, tell me what you think about that.
Well, the optics, and we all know that that's what politicians normally look at, are shocking. He got a promotion, which means he gets more money, but wouldn't you say to him, well, mate, you can have the title, you ain't getting the money until it looks right, when the timing is right. For goodness sake, I mean, how Gladys, who's pretty astute, I would have thought, would allow this to happen? It just looks so crook. And I just don't get why she would do this. You know, there's just no win for her with this. And all it's doing is just making everybody else really think twice about her judgment. And that's not a good thing.
Yeah, well, let's go to another area of judgment, because it's a right royal mess in the UK. Prince Andrew, we know he's got the clock ticking for him, Campbell. US prosecutors want to speak to him regarding Jeffrey Epstein, and he's, you know, hiding under the stable block, I don't know, under a bed in a royal palace somewhere. But it's not just him. Prince Harry's also spoken out. He's spoken out about a range of issues. Let's have a listen.
Certainly when you look across the Commonwealth, there's no way that we can move forward unless we acknowledge the past. And I think so many people have done such an amazing, incredible job of acknowledging the past and trying to right those wrongs. But I think we all acknowledge on here that there is so much more still to do. It's not going to be easy, and in some cases it's not going to be comfortable, but it needs to be done.
Across the Commonwealth, he says, well, his grandmother's the head of the Commonwealth, and of course Britain very proudly, bravely abolished slavery some 300 plus years ago. What's all that about?
Oh, look, you know, I think we're all just getting a bit sick and tired of those two ex-royals, husband and wife, lecturing us on these matters and, you know, pushing forward the woke view of the world, which shows, by the way, a pretty breathtaking lack of knowledge about history. I mean, would you rather have been colonised by the United Kingdom or perhaps France? You know, I think that was a, you know, I think that's a no-brainer that, you know, in relation to history and the colonial experience, far better to have been, you know, subjects of Great Britain. But look, you know, really overall, I know there's not a lot of time, but I'll just say this. I've been very happy to support the royal family and the Queen as our head of state. But these people are really degrading the institution right now. And you know what? You know what? It's enough to drive a guy like me to become a Republican. I'm not quite there yet, but it's coming. It's coming with these antics.
Quick one from you, Prue, because I've got to go. But I do note that they live for free, botting off someone in a, you know, multi-million-dollar house in LA, and they're a security paid for by their dad. Maybe they should get a real job.
Well, maybe. You know, I always say to my kids, check what the in-laws are like. How do they treat the parents, and what are the parents like? And sadly, I've been proven correct on this case. She's a shocker. She's a dangerous person. I wouldn't want to be at the Christmas table.
Yeah, you wouldn't want her as your PR client to clean up this mess.
Not at
Campbell
all.
Newman, Prue McSween, thank you very much.